There are stories that live in the shadows. They exist at the edge of our understanding. They speak of things just beyond our sight. High above us, in the cold, silent dark of space, some say an object circles our world. It has been there for a very long time. It is not one of ours. It is a silent watcher, a sentinel. The story gives it a name that feels ancient and powerful. They call it the Black Knight. This name itself carries a weight. It suggests a solitary, mysterious guardian, or perhaps something more ominous. Astronaut sightings, puzzling photographs. It is a story that refuses to fade away. It persists on the internet, in books, and in our collective imagination. It asks a profound question: are we truly alone? The shape of this mystery shifts depending on who tells the tale. For some, the Black Knight is an alien probe, an artifact sent thousands of years ago to observe the dawn of human civilization. For others, it is a modern conspiracy, a secret military satellite hidden from public view. And for many, it is simply a collection of unrelated events, a grand hoax stitched together from mistakes and misinterpretations. To understand the Black Knight, we must walk a path between belief and skepticism. We must travel back in time. We must examine the evidence piece by piece. The journey begins not with a spaceship, but with a sound. A faint, ghostly echo carried on the airwaves. A signal that some believed came from another world. Is this where the story truly begins? Yeah, let's see. The early 20th century was an age of new sounds. Humanity had learned to speak across vast distances using radio. But as we listened to the airwaves, we heard things we could not explain. In the 1920s, amateur radio operators scientists reported a strange phenomenon. They would send out a signal, and seconds later, they would hear an echo, a long-delayed echo. This was unexpected. Radio waves travel at the speed of light. These echoes were a puzzle. They returned far too late to have simply bounced off the ground or the moon. Something else was holding on to them, and then sending them back. Scientists at the time proposed theories involving the Earth's ionosphere. They imagined clouds of plasma trapping and releasing the signals. These were plausible explanations, but the echoes were inconsistent. They were hard to predict, and hard to study. This uncertainty created a space for other ideas to grow. The idea that these were not natural echoes at all. Some listeners wondered if they were intelligent. Could an object in orbit be recording their transmissions and playing them back? It was a fringe idea, born in an era of scientific discovery and pulp fiction adventure. The line between science and speculation was often blurry, but the seed of a story was planted. The reports of long-delayed echoes continued for decades. They were documented in scientific journals, but they were never fully explained to everyone's satisfaction. The mystery lingered. These strange sounds, these whispers from the ether, they suggested that something was up there, something was listening. What was it? And what did it want? Every great legend needs a visionary, a famous name to give it weight. For the Black Knight story, that name is Nikola Tesla. He was a man who dreamed of wireless power and communication with the stars. In 1899, working in his Colorado Springs laboratory, Tesla believed he had made contact. He was experimenting with a powerful transmitter, and he detected something extraordinary, a series of faint, repeating signals. Tesla was a careful scientist. He methodically ruled out earthly sources. He concluded the signals had to be coming from space, perhaps from Venus or Mars. He wrote that he was the first to hear the greetings of one planet to another. His announcement was sensational. It sparked public debate and imagination. Was humanity on the verge of its first conversation with an alien intelligence? Years later, storytellers would take Tesla's discovery and weave it into the growing myth. They claimed he had been the first to detect the Black Knight, that the repeating signals were a beacon from the ancient probe. But it is important to look at what Tesla himself said. He described the signals as ordered and intelligent, but he never claimed they came from a satellite. He never used the name Black Knight. The story went quiet for many years. Then, in the 1950s, the space race began. As humanity prepared to launch its own satellites, the legend re-emerged with a new, alarming twist. In 1954, major newspapers like the St. Louis Post-Dispatch articles were picked up by the Associated Press. They cited sources who claimed the U.S. Air Force had detected two strange objects in orbit around the Earth. This was before either the U.S. or the Soviet Union had launched Sputnik. The articles were speculative, filled with dramatic language. They quoted retired Naval Aviation Major Donald Keyhoe, a prominent UFO researcher. He claimed the objects were artificial satellites of unknown origin. The story caused a brief stir, but with no official confirmation, it faded from the headlines. The Pentagon denied the reports. The story was dismissed as a rumor, a piece of Cold War paranoia. A few years later, in 1960, the story resurfaced. This time, there was a specific detail. A dark object had allegedly been detected in a polar orbit. This was significant. Polar orbits are useful for mapping and for observation, but they are difficult to achieve. Neither the Americans nor the Soviets were known to have a satellite in such an orbit at that time. The object was dubbed the Dark Satellite. Once again, official sources stepped in to offer an explanation. Time magazine reported that the mystery object was likely the casing from a Discoverer satellite that had gone astray. For a story to feel real, it needs a credible witness. In 1963, the legend found one. Gordon Cooper was one of America's original Mercury 7 astronauts. He was a decorated test pilot, a man of undisputed skill and integrity. During his final orbit on the Faith 7 mission, he reported seeing something unusual, a greenish glowing object that appeared to be moving toward his capsule. The sighting was logged. According to the official mission transcripts, the tracking station at Moochea, Australia, also picked up an unidentified object on its radar. The event lasted only a few minutes. Years later, the story would grow. Writers and researchers began to link Cooper's sighting to the larger Black Knight myth. They claimed Cooper had seen an alien craft. Cooper's own stance was complex. He was a firm believer in UFOs. He often said governments were hiding evidence. He maintained the Faith 7 sighting was real and unexplained. He didn't think it was a hallucination or an illusion. He was an experienced pilot who trusted his eyes. Cooper never called the object the Black Knight. Others made that connection. Ground reports conflicted. Some within NASA called the radar a possible error. Others suggested a strange atmospheric effect for the visual. The record is ambiguous. We're left with a trusted astronaut's word against official uncertainty. What did Gordon Cooper really see up there? Well, the question remains. In the early 1970s, the mystery took a scientific turn. A Scottish writer and astronomer named Duncan Lunan decided to re-examine the old radio echoes from the 1920s. He believed they were not random. He suspected there was a pattern hidden within the delays. He took the data, recorded by Norwegian scientists decades earlier, and began plotting it on a graph. He was looking for a message. What he found was astonishing. The plotted points seemed to form a map, a star map. Lunan interpreted the pattern as a chart of the constellation Boötis, as it would have appeared from its home star, Epsilon Boötis. The map, he claimed, was a message from the inhabitants of that star system. It was sent by an automated probe that had been orbiting Earth for 13,000 years. This probe was the source of the echoes. Lunan's theory was published in the journal Spaceflight. It was a sensation. It gave the Black Knight legend a name. It gave the Black Knight legend an origin. It gave the Black Knight legend a purpose. It was no longer just a dark satellite. It was an ancient alien artifact, a messenger from the stars. For a time, Lunan's work was celebrated in UFO and ancient astronaut circles. It seemed like the first hard evidence, the first real translation of a signal from the void. But science is a process of self-correction. A few years later, Lunan re-evaluated his own work. He found errors in his calculations. The data he had used was incomplete and, in some cases, unreliable. He realized his star map was a result of seeing a pattern where none existed. He publicly and courageously retracted his theory. During the STS-88 mission, the Space Shuttle Endeavour met with the first American module, Unity. During a spacewalk, astronauts Jerry Ross and James Newman were working to connect the two massive structures, and they took photographs. The images were stunning, and among them was a photo of a strange, dark object. It was angular and irregular. It looked like nothing seen before. It floated against the backdrop of the Earth's clouds. The photos were released by NASA and quickly spread across the fledgling internet. For believers, this was the smoking gun. This was it. The Black Knight, finally captured on film. It looked alien. It looked ancient. The object's appearance was compelling. It did not look like a normal satellite. Its shape was jagged and asymmetrical. It seemed to be made of different parts joined together. Ufologists and conspiracy theorists declared victory. They claimed NASA had accidentally revealed the truth. The object in the photos became the definitive image of the Black Knight. It was shared on countless websites, always presented as proof of an alien presence. But NASA had a much simpler explanation. During the spacewalk, a thermal blanket had come loose from a trunnion pin on the Unity module. It was a piece of debris. A piece of space junk. Mission specialists explained that the blanket, designed to protect equipment from extreme temperatures, had tumbled away from the shuttle. Its odd shape was simply the result of it unfolding and twisting as it floated in zero gravity. But which story is the truth? Which story is the truth? So we have two competing narratives. On one side, we have the myth. A 13,000-year-old alien satellite, detected by Tesla, tracked by the military, seen by an astronaut, finally photographed by the space shuttle. It is a thrilling and cohesive story. It connects disparate events across a century into a single, epic tale. It is a story that speaks to our deep desire for wonder and contact. On the other side, we have the official record, a series of explainable, if sometimes unusual, events. The radio echoes of the 1920s are likely a natural atmospheric phenomenon. Tesla's signals were probably cosmic radio waves from pulsars or planets. The 1960 satellite sighting was a lost piece of a Discoverer rocket. Gordon Cooper's sighting remains ambiguous, but has several plausible, non-alien explanations. And the 1998 photos are of a thermal blanket. When you place the myth and the record side by side, you see a pattern. The myth relies on connecting dots that may not be connected. It takes ambiguous events and gives them a specific, extraordinary meaning. The record, supported by most scientists and engineers, offers more mundane explanations for each individual event. It does not require a grand conspiracy. It relies on physics, atmospheric science, human error. Skeptics point out that there is no single piece of hard evidence that stands up to scrutiny. No verifiable radio signal, no unambiguous radar track, no physical artifact. The entire story is built on interpretation. It is a house of cards, where each card is a misidentified object or an unconfirmed report. But for those who believe, the sheer number of incidents points to a larger truth. Is it all just coincidence? Well, is it all just coincidence? In the end, what is the Black Knight? The weight of the verifiable evidence points away from an ancient alien probe. It points toward a collection of misidentified human technology, natural phenomena, a powerful story that binds them together. The firm record gives us a thermal blanket. The myth gives us a 13,000-year-old sentinel. The gap between those two is where the mystery lives. But to dismiss the story as a simple hoax is to miss a deeper truth. The legend of the Black Knight tells us more about ourselves than it does about aliens. It reflects our hopes, our fears, our deep-seated curiosity about our place in the universe, our suspicion of authority, and our unending capacity for wonder. We seem to need these mysteries. We need to believe there is something more, just beyond the reach of our current knowledge. The story persists because it asks the right questions. Are we alone? Is there a history hidden from us? What else is waiting to be discovered? These are the questions that drive science and exploration forward. The search for answers, even for a phantom satellite, pushes us to look more closely at the world around us. and at the sky above. It encourages us to keep an open mind, but also a critical one. The black night may not be a physical object orbiting our planet. It may instead be a mirror.